So welcome everybody for today's webinar on the art of the ask. Thanks so much for joining over your lunch hour, hopefully for many of you guys. We have a number of local community foundations on the call, along with some nonprofit partners and I think some grantee partners. Just for a little bit of context, we've been doing these kind of quarterly local community foundation webinars on a variety of different topics. We've done ones on like asking for a gift in a will or estate plan, to easy to use marketing tools, to innovative practices in grant making. And this quarterly topic is on the art of the ask. And so we've also kind of extended the invite to a number of nonprofit partners and grantee partners, knowing that it's not just local community foundations across the state that are going out and having those kind of like one-on-one conversations with donors, but also a number of other partners that we work with here at the Montana Community Foundation. And so wanted to kind of like broaden that circle this quarter. And I'll put a link in the chat in case any of our nonprofit partners or grantee partners are interested in looking back at the recording of previous local community foundation webinars. You're certainly welcome to watch those, although sometimes they are a little bit more geared towards local community foundations. So thank you again, everybody. Here at the Montana Community Foundation, one of our kind of like goals is making sure that all of our local community foundation partners, nonprofit partners, grantee partners have the tools and training and expertise to make you feel really confident in the work that you're doing across the state. And we want to thank you for all of your hard work that you're doing, especially right now. And we know that fundraising is a hot topic, especially in today's kind of like current climate. And oftentimes we have conversations with local community foundations and we talk about the fact that there's kind of a whole arsenal of fundraising tools that they have in their tool belt. Oftentimes local community foundations are doing annual appeals or giving days. But one of the things that we really try to emphasize, and our philanthropy team in particular tries to emphasize, is that one of the most successful fundraising tools that you have in your tool belt is those one-on-one conversations that you can have with either current donors or prospective donors to kind of make that ask. And so that was really the impetus behind our topic for today's webinar. A lot of our local community foundation partners have part-time staff or maybe volunteer boards, and so they aren't necessarily fundraisers, 40 hours a week. And so we want to use kind of the expertise and knowledge on our philanthropy team to demystify that one-on-one conversation that you might have with a donor and make it a little bit more approachable for everybody. So just a couple of housekeeping items before we get into the content for today's session. As you guys probably noticed, it is being recorded. We will share the recording with folks that weren't able to make it onto the call today and send it out afterwards along with the slides. And we'll also post it on our website in case people would like to watch it later on. We encourage you to put any questions, comments, or resources in the chat function. So if you have a question and kind of as we're going through and we're hearing from folks on our philanthropy team, feel free to pop it in there, or maybe it brings to mind another resource or idea that you've heard about in another webinar or in the work that you're doing. We would love for you to share it with the group. We'll also have some specific time at the end for folks to be able to ask questions. So you can come off mute then and kind of ask a question a little bit more in depth. And overall, we want this 1 hour that we have together to be as participatory as possible. So please feel free to pipe in with anything that you have to add. We want this to help you and be a resource for the work that you're doing across the state. So with that, I'm going to do kind of just a quick introduction of myself, which I probably should have done before I kind of gave my intro spiel, but my name is Taylor Crowell, and I'm our Community and Economic Vitality Program Officer here at the Montana Community Foundation. So I help manage our local community foundation program. But today we're really hearing from 3 experts on our philanthropy team, Heather, Allie, and Jim. And so if I can ask you guys to unmute yourself and give just kind of like a quick overview for folks in the room to get to know you and maybe your background and expertise a little bit better, that would be great. And I'll start with you, Heather.
Thanks, Taylor. Hi, everyone. I'm Heather Rose. I am residing in the rural community of Pony, Montana. I have spent nearly the last 30 years working exclusively in philanthropy, and there is nothing more I love than asking for support, money, partnerships, collaboration. I primarily work from Bozeman over to Miles City and everything down and in between. So I'm on the road a lot. And I focus a great deal of my time on endowment, plan gifts, and working in more complicated giving structures. And with all of that, there are numerous asks involved. And if you're not being told no, you're not doing it right. So I will give you that bit of encouragement.
Thanks, Heather. Allie, can I ask you to unmute yourself and do a little intro?
You bet. Allie Fontenot. I'm the Gift and Estate Planning Director with the Montana Community Foundation based here in Missoula. I cover Western Montana. And I really enjoy working with donors on trying to figure out solutions to the things like people come to us, they want to give, they don't know how to give. And Jim, Heather, and I, we all work with donors on trying to figure out the best ways for them to give back to their communities. And I'm very thankful and grateful for the work that I get to do over here in Western Montana and supporting my coworkers across the state.
Thanks, Allie. And Jim, can I ask you to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, I'm Jim Bennett. I'm coming to you live from my living room. Luckily, in a small town, you're never that far away, right? So, I'm the Gifted Estate Planning Director for kind of northern and a big chunk of eastern Montana. I'm based in Havre. And before the Montana Community Foundation, I did a lot of work in university fundraising. And yeah, like these guys, I work in a lot in a variety of ways, helping people understand how they can maximize their charitable impact.
Great. Thanks, Jim. Okay. Um, I'm going to go over a little bit of our goals for our hour together today. So we're going to start off with a quick icebreaker in a second, and then Allie's going to talk about kind of like why people give, and how you can use their motivations or different kind of like interests to help frame your ask. Jim is then going to chat about preparing for the ask. So before you even have that one-on-one conversation with a donor, what are things that you can do to kind of set yourself up for success? And then Heather is going to chat us through like that actual one-on-one conversation, demystify that a little bit. And then Jim and Heather are going to model that conversation for us, which I always think is the most illustrative part. And then if we have time, we'll have a little bit of time for you guys to break out and practice a little bit. If we don't get to that section, we have some takeaways to help with that practice with your boards. Okay, so before we kind of hand it over to our philanthropy team to walk us through the ask, I just had a quick icebreaker. So feel free to pop your answer in the chat or come off mute. But is there a time that you can describe when someone asked you for something and you said yes? And I'm curious what made it compelling. This could be in a fundraising context, like maybe you've had someone ask you for a donation, or it could be in a personal context. Maybe there was a time in your life where a family member asked you for something, or a partner or a friend. Okay, Corey said heartfelt cause. I love that. Hopefully everybody else is thinking about it. Kate said highlighting accomplishments of the foundation. Jennifer said when a kid personally asked to support an activity or fundraiser. Mo said I was asked to take over fundraising to start up 2 sports clubs for a nonprofit school. Heather said experience as a volunteer then led me to being a new donor. Um, knowing the why is what Renee said. Ooh, Carrie said I'm a sucker for a personal one-on-one ask. We love that. So yeah, lots of great thoughts coming into the chat. Oh, Jim said we were asked by a friend to support a project in town. He explained how important the project would um, he explained how important that project would help the community. Bill said one often wants to respond to a genuine ask, just feels like the right response. I love these responses. So feel free to put any more ideas in the chat about like what made something compelling. But some of the themes that I'm seeing pop up are right, like a personal connection, like knowing who is making the ask, the organization behind the ask, or the cause behind the ask. And donors often give to causes that they feel connected to. I heard some like themes around like a compelling reason or like understanding the why, what it'll accomplish, a sense of impact. Um, I didn't hear this come up, but like one of the things that came up to me is sometimes like I say yes to an ask when it's just the right timing, right? Like I might have to say no because of personal circumstances or something that's going on in life. But sometimes like the ask just happens to align with good timing. And we'll get into that a little bit as we talk about objections. But just wanted to kind of frame that because I think a lot of these themes will come back up as our philanthropy team digs in. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Allie to talk about why people give.
Thanks, Taylor. We're going to talk a little bit here about the 7 phases of philanthropy. This is a framework that can help us understand the motivation behind why people give. As we all know, each donor has their own unique circumstances, their reasons, but by recognizing these motivations, we can honor each donor's values. And then as a result of that, hopefully we're building stronger relationships and ensuring that the donor's giving is meaningful and lasting. Understanding the motivation helps us meet donors where they are. So why are they giving? Can help us build stronger relationships. And then we can tailor our approach with each donor. So going into a meeting, when I know the donor already, or even when I'm sitting in a meeting, I'm kind of constantly running through these 7 phases of philanthropy and thinking about the lens then that I'm looking at, so that when I'm speaking to this donor, I can tailor my conversation and my questions and the examples or stories that I tell based on where the donor falls. As you can imagine, there are 7 of these, but sometimes the donor falls into 1 or 2 of these. I met with a donor yesterday, and the whole time I was sitting there, I was like, okay, this donor is a number 7, the dynast. He's comes from a family of long line of giving, but man, he is an investor. He is strategic, looking for tangible results. And he asked me, I don't know how many questions, but I love it. I love questions. That's another thing that I love. The other thing that the 7 phases of philanthropy does for us is it gives us a team training tool. So it gives us a shared framework. I talk about this with my coworkers, with Jim and Heather. We have another coworker, Sarah, who's on the call today over in Billings. And so it gives us a vocabulary for talking about motivations and so on and so forth. So we'll run through them real quick. And as you can imagine, there are a lot of resources out there on the internet and otherwise, books. So, and always, if you have any questions, you can follow up with us. But the first is the communitarian. This is the donor who is motivated by the desire to improve their local community. An example that I've seen in my territory, the Polson Pool. People want to donate, often want to donate. They have a beautiful pool in Polson. They have a fund with us. They know that this gift is connecting, is bettering their community. It's connecting them with other community people. It might boost their reputation in their community if people know that they're giving to the pool. So in this case, we're emphasizing the community impact, how the gift makes their town thrive. The next is the devout. Doing good is God's will. So we probably all have these donors that are driven by religious or spiritual beliefs and see giving as a moral or religious obligation. I have quite a few of these. They're always a pleasure to work with, as you can imagine. The third is the investor. So the donor views philanthropy as strategic investment. They're looking for tangible results and impact. So doing good is good business. We see this a lot with our Montana Endowment Tax Credit donors. They see the tax credit as a strategic investment, I guess. And it's not, of course, to downplay their charitable side, but they also see, like, for example, with the pool, like the Polson pool example, they may see investing in our pool as making it a desirable place for people to live and provide recreation for their kids. So they see their gift as an investment in human capital and want measurable returns on their investment. The fourth is the socialite. So the donor who's motivated by the social aspects of giving, enjoying events and networking opportunities. This might be me a little bit. I go to all the things. I go to a lot of the things in Missoula. I invite my friends to all the things. Doing good is fun. Going back to our pool example, you could, as a fundraiser, talk to this donor and say, hey, maybe you could host a party, a fundraising party for, for the pool, or maybe even hosting a party at the pool for as a fundraising idea. So someone who loves attending fundraising galas, events, so on and so forth. And I realize that I may be the exception and not the rule there. What's next? The altruist, the donor who gives out of a sense of moral obligation and a desire to help others without expecting recognition. So doing good just feels right. Cool example, somebody lives in Polson. They maybe told me they want to have a place for the kids to learn to swim. I've actually heard this quite a bit from the donors in Polson. They talk about how they live near a lake and a lot of rivers, and they want to make sure that kids in their community learn to swim. So making sure that they have a place where kids can learn to swim is important to them. And it's the motivation there is more selfless and underlying satisfaction. They typically don't want a lot of recognition. They don't need their name on any brochure or anything in general. Moving on to the repayer. This donor feels a sense of gratitude and a desire to pay it forward after receiving help or experiencing a positive outcome. So somebody who grew up in Polson took swimming lessons at the Polson pool and decided they now want to donate to continue the Polson pool thriving in Polson. And the final, the dynast. The donor either comes from a family with a tradition of giving or has been socialized to believe in the importance of charitable giving. So doing good is a family tradition. An example, I'm gonna move away from the pool, but like Washington Grizzly Stadium, everybody knows the Washington family in Missoula and across Montana, of course. And the Washingtons are known as generous people in our communities, and doing good is a family tradition for them. That was a lot of information. We only have a short period of time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's me now. And I would just say, as we're going through this exercise, it might be good for you all to think about somebody that's either recently given to your organization or somebody that you want to give to your organization. Like, how are you going to frame, asking them to join you in fundraising? And the first part of it is understanding maybe what their motivations are, but the next part is preparing for your ask. And I think if you don't prepare, you'll get what you get. But if you do prepare, it can help you have a more guided conversation with this potential donor. And so the first thing that you need to do is know how much you're going to ask for and what's the purpose of your ask. Are you asking for them to support the pool in Polson? Are you asking them to pay for swim lessons for kids that don't have the ability to pay for it? And so finding kind of a range in which it would be not off-putting to the donor, but would be impactful for the thing that you're asking about is important. And the next thing is you need to think about internally, like who's going to do it and what's the timeline going to be. And I think that it's important to consider, like, maybe I'm on the board and maybe Heather's on the board and Heather has a connection with this potential donor and I don't. Maybe she's the right person to handle that conversation. So it's good to strategize within your board or within your organization to find the right person to carry that message. The next thing is to know the donor and if they've given before, have they volunteered before, are they giving to similar things in the community? Um, if you don't know, maybe it's good to just try and do a little recon or have what we call a discovery visit where you talk to them first. That can help you understand their why and what's motivating them and which of those faces of philanthropy this person is most likely exhibiting. And then, you want to craft something that's personal. Um, but some people want hard data and some people want to hear a story of impact. So some people might want to hear we have 75 kids in our program that aren't able to pay for swim lessons. Somebody might want to hear a story about little Johnny who, after taking swim lessons ended up being a star in high school swimming or something. But you can prepare knowing which one of those faces of philanthropy and base your preparation on that. And the next thing that you want to do is figure out where you're going to do it. So if you're going to ask this person, are they busy? Maybe you meet them at their office. Are they the kind of person that wants to be seen at the restaurant with the fundraising person? Then maybe they're a socialite that you would like to take to coffee. Some people are private and would like to meet at their home. It's kind of again, all of this is about knowing who your donor is and what makes them most comfortable. And the last thing that I would encourage you to do that we do sometimes with each other on our team is we practice um, asking what we want them to do so that when we get there, it's not just like a bunch of jumbled up thoughts in my head. It allows me some time. I'm an external thinker. It allows me some time to externally process, like um, we appreciate all you've done. We're in a special situation. We're wondering if you could do a little bit more to help us this year. So I always find that preparation is incredibly important, and the result that you get from preparation is so much better than going in there blind and just hoping for the best.
All right, you guys, making the ask. I think there's a couple steps, and Jim and Ali highlighted it. And I'd like you, for the sake of this, as I'm going through this slide, think of a person, either where you've had a successful ask or perhaps a person that you've always wanted to ask, but you've shied away from because you think, I'm just not capable or I'm not ready to make that ask. And then back to Jim's point, once you have that person in mind, for a moment, as I go through these slides, reflect if you are the person that should be making the ask. I've got so excited in my 30-year career thinking, just because I'm in the development seat, that I should be the one asking. But sometimes there's somebody else better poised to make that ask, and you can help them get to that. And then lastly, before I dive into this, one thing, when I do know that I've got a meeting set, I've followed the steps that Jim's done, I've thought of the 7 faces of this person, I like to do a quick Google search or a social search just to see if anything has recently impacted their life positively or negatively that's going to impact the conversation we're having in the future. Things happen rapidly in our lives, and that can change the timing, like back to Taylor's point, of when it is appropriate to make or not make an ask. And so I hope you have fun. I think this I think if we go into this knowing that asking for support for the things we love and care about, and we have to believe they love and care about them too, or else we wouldn't be spending our time to ask them, that it can be a win-win for everyone. So I can't stress enough, thank the person. When you get in their presence, when you're with them, express gratitude for the gifts they've made before you or while you've been with the organization. Gratitude leads to a lot of leeway in what's to come in this process. And so spend a couple minutes with a warm welcome and connecting with folks, whether it be the hard things you recognize about what's going on in their life or the good things. And make that authentic. People are looking for real relationships and not something transactional. We're in the business. Many of us have worked with the same donors for 3, 4, or 5. And in many cases, some of us will for decades with a family. So really make sure it's relational and that the whole time in your brain, you're not just thinking about a dollar amount and an outcome. Um, Once you've established that warm welcome and the rapport, you're going to settle in. You'll feel a natural segue where you're going to be able to respectfully go over and highlight what it is they've done for your organization. And I think it's a good reminder, not only an exercise in preparing to know how they've supported your organization, and maybe they have not yet, but it also reminds them. When people have done it with me, I'm like, oh gosh, I forgot that I also cared about the playground. And yeah, and then you start thinking of all these warm ways you're connected and what that long relationship has looked like. But again, if it's a new relationship, that's okay too. And then you're going to move into the third step, which is really bringing in I would say the heart of it, the mission and the impact story. And this is a part where you want to be very thoughtful. Some people are analytic. They're back to the investor, the face, where they want data points. Like, tell me how many meals did you provide for children in school last year? That data set's going to be really exciting. Or for somebody else, it may be, I really loved hearing about Janie and how school was the place where she was able to get fed. And that made a difference in her learning and staying in school. And so that's why Ali led us through this exercise. Knowing what motivates and what speaks to the heart of each particular donor is going to help you craft what about the mission you share and what impact points you do. Because if you're talking data to me all day long, you're going to lose me. But if you're telling me stories of impact, you've already got me in like teed up for that next part of the ask. And for anyone who, I think it's Brene Brown that says clear is kind, we're moving into the actual ask. There you go. Allie's giving me a thumbs up. By now, and even before this, because Jim's told you, you're going to ask the person for time to come talk to them about an investment in your organization or cause. And so they're not surprised that as this meeting moves forward, you're going to make an ask. So it is perfectly acceptable. And I encourage you to be clear and bold and be respectful in this moment, but let them know what it is you are wanting and why you think they're suited to do that. And then this is probably the most nerve-wracking point. For those of you that are uncomfortable with the ask, the awkward silence after you make that bold ask, you have to sit there for like 10 seconds. And you can't just talk over yourself and we make a lot of assumptions about what somebody's thinking when we ask for money. And usually those assumptions are wrong. And we might just talk them out of saying yes. And so if that requires you to sit on your hands, if it requires you to count to 10 in your head, I strongly urge you to practice. As Jim mentioned earlier, he, internal or externalizes. I shared this earlier with a coworker. My husband is an internalizer. It takes him so long that often I think he has hung up on the phone. I have to ask if he's still there. It takes that long for him to make a decision. And so if we rush a person, we don't allow them that respectful amount of time to make an ask. So really practice that if I could give you any advice. And then here's the unknown, and it's what's kept me in this industry forever. They could say yes, they could say no, or they could say I have more questions. And any response is a positive response, right? it gives you an opportunity to keep the conversation going. So you can, maybe they want to know something specific and you might have the answer. And if you don't, I think that's a win too. You get a chance to say, I'm going to follow up with you. I'm going to come back to you with that information because I want to make sure what I'm giving you is accurate. And then you've already got permission to have a second conversation with them. If they say yes, you are going to profuse gratitude again in a way that's authentic and, meaningful to really recognize, gosh, we are so grateful. And you're also going to feel that whole level of anxiety just leave your body. So then you're like probably your most authentic and comfortable self. But if they hesitate or they're concerned about the amount or the answer is just not now, do not feel defeated. You did one of the hardest things. You made an ask, and that's something, some of the population will never do. So, regardless of the outcome, the final step is summarize what it was you talked about. Summarize what it is you agreed upon, whether that's a follow up, that's a no, not now, or it's a yes, and I'll send you an invoice. And then close that conversation. Thank them for their time. Thank them for what they've done previously and what they plan to do in the future. And leave them with that positive experience of that exchange. And they will feel, you know, they will have a lot of respect for that moment that was shared together. Am I managing the expectations or objections?
I think I am, but you can go for it. You kind of already did it.
No, go ahead.
I think it's me. And Heather already touched on this. I am a strong advocate of nonviolent communication. And one of my favorite NVC coaches is Oren J. Sofer, Sofer. I love him. Look him up, listen to a podcast. And a couple of the things that he talks about, and this is in general, this is in life, not just managing objections, but lead with presence and then come from a place of curiosity and care. So I always try to do those things. I'm not always successful. I think Heather already talked about this, but like when someone gives you an objection or asks you a question, sometimes we immediately go, oh, this could be a bad thing, or we think of it as an obstacle. And of course, we want to turn that into an opportunity. If they're asking questions, then we know they're engaged, and that's a good sign. This is an invitation for us to learn more about the donor's values and concerns. So they're considering this gift, and now they're, well, what about this or what about that? So it's such a great opportunity. And going back to my first thing, lead with presence, going back to what Heather also said, take a breath, pause, and listen. What is the donor asking? And maybe the underlying, like they may be saying one thing, and you're just taking a moment to let them fully express. So not jumping in, letting Dave, Heather's husband, have his moment. And then the second step, come from a place of curiosity and care. Say things like, oh, I can understand that this might be a concern, or, oh, I can understand why you might feel this way, depending upon what it is. Donors want to, like all of us, we all just want to feel heard and understood and not talked over or talked past. So, and then asking some clarifying questions. So coming from curiosity. So what can you tell me more about that? Or what makes you feel that way? What's most important when considering this gift? What's most important for you? So you're trying to uncover information about this quote unquote objection. Then listening and then bringing it back, maybe reframing it. Oh, what I hear you saying is the timing isn't right for you right now. Okay, so timing isn't right. And then connecting it back to your mission, what you're doing, and asking some clarifying questions or opening the door, like if it's a timing thing. Oh, I understand the timing might not be right. There are other ways we can explore this. Instead of a gift today, a gift I'll get back to you, Bill. Your thing just popped up on me. I'll put it in the chat. Anyway, keeping the door open, even if they decline, you're thanking them for meeting, and say, I'd like to follow up. And then of course, following up within whatever timeline, you agree upon, or again, clear as kind. So this doesn't work for you today. I'd like to follow up with you in 6 months. How does that sound? I think we got everything. I was just kind of going off script here. Acknowledge the concern, ask clarifying questions, offer flexible options. Yeah, different timing, different vehicles, and keep the door open. Boom.
Good job, Allie. Thank you. All right, you guys. So now we're gonna give an actual, like if you watch like a documentary or you watch something on TV and it says, most based on mostly true events. So Jim and I are going to role play in a scenario that is based mostly true on events in the professional role I have and in the donor role that Jim partakes in. And hopefully you can glean from it some of the things that we've referenced throughout this training. You may see yourself in some of this, or there may be aspects you never thought of. There will also be things that you do that are unique to your style of communication, to your temperament, and to the way you operate. And I would encourage you to keep those in your repertoire of how you make the ask, because again, that's what makes it authentic. So, Jim, are you ready to role play with me?
I'm ready.
Okay. Jim, thank you so much for agreeing to meet with me. What wild times. Here we were going to be in your office and now we're in your living room.
I know. Yeah. Well, that's one thing about life is sometimes you got to pivot, right?
Yeah, absolutely pivot. And I know, like with us both having kids, it's crazy with school starting and between their illnesses and so forth, it's wild to find a time. So I sure appreciate you carving out a half an hour for us today to talk about something that I know is near and dear to both of us.
Yeah. Always glad to chat.
Yeah, so Jim, the Hill County Community Foundation has done incredible work, as you know, in Havre and beyond. And you've been a real integral part of that as a board member, as a donor, and just an overall ambassador to Havre. When I think of Havre, I think of Jim Bennett.
Thanks for saying that.
No, but I don't think of the water issue. I think of all the great things about Havre because you are constantly sharing just the highlights and the amazing projects that the Hill County Community Foundation has accomplished. And that couldn't have been done without your passion and your investment and your network that you lend to all of us. So Hill County's done some really remarkable things. And one of the ones that's really caught my eye, Jim, is that mural in town. You know what I'm
Mhm.
talking about, right?
Oh yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Were you part of that? Did you go out and watch that as it was being painted?
Yeah, it was really cool. And it's that's the doormat to our community. I mean, people when they first drive into Havre, for them to be able to see something welcoming like that, it's good for everyone in our community, for our downtown businesses.
Yeah.
I think it's just a nice first impression when you get to town.
It sure is. And I'm always surprised on social media how many people I see take their photo in front of that
Hmm.
mural and then lots of other murals in our county. So my kids certainly are that's one of their things for their Instagram, making sure that they have, good content and have or has it. So, well, Jim, our local community foundation is in the middle of campaign to continue to grow the endowment, which will allow cool projects like the mural and other needed things as our community evolves to be able to be funded. And you have given $25 a month every month for the past 36 years. So if you're doing some math, that's a considerable investment from a local into the community foundation.
Yeah, yeah, it's been good, but um, I think it's interesting that this is the first time anyone's ever met with me about that.
Oh gosh, that breaks my heart to hear that. I I like to think of every donation matters, and the fact that you've been standing alongside of us for 3 years saying, I support you, I see you, the work is really important. I'm going to make sure we do a better job of recognizing your long-term and continued support. And so, with that in mind, I want to be real aware of your feedback, and I appreciate you sharing that with me. We're gearing up to receive a match. We're working hard to help raise $25,000 to increase the endowment, as I earlier referenced. Jim, would you and your wife, Lindsay, take some time to consider a commitment of $1,000 this year, going above and beyond what you have done? Would that be something that you would feel would be a good use of your funds to better have her forever?
You know, school just started. We've got a lot of things that are happening in our personal lives. Um, but we feel that the work that the Community Foundation does is important. And so that's something that I and my wife will have to talk about together. And, something that I'd be glad to visit with you about after I've had time to talk to her.
Absolutely. I know those like first week of school, it feels like we get shot out of a cannon. Like
Hmm.
my kids are usually asleep on the couch by 4 and I'm not far behind going to
Yeah,
bed. So Jim,
yeah,
I respect that you and Lindsay do this in partnership. You make those philanthropic decisions together. That's a wonderful thing. And as you're visiting with her, if she has any questions as to what we're proposing to do with the endowment and the projects we see in the foreseeable future, please feel comfortable to call me and follow up. I can either speak with her directly or with you or whatever form of communication you'd like from me. I want to make it easy so that you two can reach a decision. Does that sound good?
yeah. And we're going to be gone for Labor Day, but maybe this is something we can talk about like in the first week of September.
I was going to say, if you're going to try to talk about it in the car with your kids, just forget it. It's hard enough, right?
That's right.
Okay, Jim. Well, with your permission, I'll follow up with you mid-September. I'll put a reminder on my calendar. I want to reach out and see if you and Lindsay have visited. And in the meantime, best of luck as the school year kicks off. Safe travels for Labor Day. And again, thank you for those 3 years of commitment that you've given to the Hill County Community Foundation. We are where we are today because of folks like you, and I just can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
Okay, you guys, we're both still standing. Well, Jim's sitting. I guess we're both sitting. So we're not literally standing, but Jim and I did not walk through that prior to this, just so you're aware. Like we know each other. Obviously, we have a rapport, we have that background information, and we know some things about each other. But I would expect you'll have at least that amount of information when you're, making the ask. And so, Taylor, I'm going to turn it back over to you, and you boss us around.
Sounds good. Thanks, Heather. Thanks, Jim. Yeah, I feel like I have so many observations, even from that like one-on-one modeling of the ask. So I appreciate you guys doing that. I kind of want to check in with the group. We have about 14 minutes left, so we can break into breakout sessions and folks can practice this a little bit, or we can leave plenty of time for questions at the end. Are there questions from folks to kind of carve out some time for that, or does practice feel more helpful? What are folks thinking? This is me getting comfortable with 10 seconds of silence. Practice always helps. Okay, I heard Todd say practice. Okay, let's pop folks into breakout sessions just for a couple of minutes, and you can either chat with, you'll have like 1 or 2 people in your breakout sessions, depending on my math. You can chat with folks about like an ask that you're getting ready for, maybe help brainstorm that, or if you're at the point where you want to kind of practice making that ask, we'll give you time to do that too. And then we'll come back in with about like 5 or 6 minutes left before 1, so people can ask any questions of Jim, Allie, and Heather. Welcome back. hopefully folks had a chance to at least practice a little bit or pick the brains of folks in your breakout room. Jim, do you want to chat about next steps and then we can save a couple of minutes for questions at the end?
Yeah, for sure. I just would encourage you guys all, if you're here on behalf of a board or you're the employee and you have other people that are working together, you know, like take some of this back and talk about it at your next board meeting or your next staff meeting. Especially that part about the seven faces and kind of identifying who it is that you're going to be communicating with. I think that that is just such a helpful tool for setting the table. Um, and I was just talking to some folks in our breakout room about, you know, start with one. Like you create your agenda, maybe for how you're going to do your pitch. You're going to practice with a board member or a friend that you trust, and then maybe find a donor that you think would be the very first person. It's going to be comfortable. It's going to be an easier conversation than kind of your shot in the dark person I've always wanted to ask but was too afraid to. Start with someone that you're not afraid to talk to and ask them at the end, you know, for some feedback. How did that go? Did you feel like I encapsulated what the Hill County Community Foundation does? Did I miss something important? And so, you know, I would encourage you to start with someone that you're comfortable with because you can replicate how that went with other people, but it's a lot easier if you're comfortable in that first one than if you're you know, biting your fingernails and pulling your hair out. So start easy and you know, uh as you do these kinds of asks, it gets easier, but the conversation will be different every time. And so there are things you can learn from it. And those things are really helpful to share with other board and staff members at future meetings. So um always make sure you have a plan and you say thank you when the meeting is over, because no matter what, that person has donated their time to you. And so it's always a good idea to thank that person. Sometimes people love a thank you card afterwards. So knowing your donor and if that's something that's going to make them feel good, I always feel like, you know, if it's cost me $1, I'm not really out anything. So I'd encourage you guys to practice and get out there.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah.
Any questions that folks have for the group? I know we're right at 1, so if you need to pop off, that's absolutely okay. Thanks for spending the past hour with us. But Jim, Allie, and Heather, if you guys have a second to stay on for any questions, that would be great. Bye, Bill. Okay, I'm not seeing any. As I think I mentioned, we'll make sure to send out the recording and the slides. Thanks for joining us for this LCF webinar on the art of the ask. We'll have another one this fall on succession planning. So if you're thinking about kind of like transition, especially like with leadership on your board or how to set up kind of future board members or recruit new board members, we're going to cover kind of all of that at the webinar in November. In the meantime, if you have any questions or follow-up kind of like thoughts for Jim, Allie, or Heather, I'll make sure to include their contact information in the follow-up email. They're always here as a resource and support. So if you want to practice one-on-one with one of them about a next ask that you have, I'm sure they'd be happy to do that. But overall, just thank you guys so much for all that you're doing in your communities and for spending some time with us today. Okay. Bye,
Thanks,
guys.
everybody.